Today we welcome to No Limits for his first appearance, but he's been a long-time friend of the podcast. Welcome, Jared Macarin. Did I get it right?
Yes, you got it right the first time. That's impressive.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mike.
So we started chatting I guess, maybe a year or two ago. Sometime we started the podcast up. And I feel like every single time we hear of a new thriller, you're always one of the first people posting about it, reviewing it, and that we chit-chat with. How did you get into thrillers?
I've been a huge fan of the thriller genre for a long time. Clive Cussler, loved reading his books early on. Nelson DeMille, Vince Flynn, and Brad Thor. I was introduced to those guys a long time ago. But to be honest, those were mainly the authors that I read until probably about 3 years ago. And then, right before the pandemic happened, my wife was like, you need a hobby. You need to do something. Write a book. Like, I had a short story that I had in high school that I had written with a couple friends. In college, I turned it into a screenplay with another friend. And then it just kind of, sat there. And my wife was like, you need a hobby. Why don't you turn that into a book? And I was like, all right, sure. So started writing that. Then I got on Twitter, found a bunch of, found the Real Book Spy, found a bunch of, authors. And then this happened. Just started going nuts, reading all the authors. My wife is like, please stop buying books. Like, seriously, you have.
That's like Martini's wife.
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, so she's like, until you read the 35 books that you haven't read that are on your shelf, like, please stop buying. Not going to happen. But that's when I started getting into Mark Greaney, Don Bentley, Chris Haughty. Who else? All of these. Ward Larson, so many, Jack Carr, all those guys. Just really getting into reading a lot of different people. And it's been awesome because, they're all terrific in their own way. But I was just like, I'm going to buy like the first 10 books in like all of these series.
Wow.
I'll just get to all of them. So it was, Mark Greaney, Don Bentley, Chris Haughty, Ward Larson, Andrews and Wilson, all of those guys.
Yes.
Friends of the pod.
Yeah. So just really trying to get a diverse cross-section of thriller writers, because they all have something very unique, the way that they tell a story. And as someone who's, working on his debut novel, like, you want to read how the people who are published do it, and you want to see what makes them so successful, and you don't want to, you see things that you can work on, ways that you can tell a story within your own voice, but, learning from the guys who obviously have done really well with it. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Cause I feel like if you just stick to one author, you could find yourself either trying to mimic that one author, but if you have a breadth, then you can, take bits and pieces and sort of create your own. And what, I'm sure what you've learned and what we've learned through this whole process is that this community is so great. And so the outreach, and I don't know if you've had a chance to go to any of the writers conventions, like I know both Eric Bishop and as well as, what's his name?
Chris Albanese.
Chris Albanese suggested. We don't write, but we kind of want to go maybe next year and just pick authors' brains. But yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad you're getting into it.
Yeah, I haven't been able to go to any of the conferences, but like I've talked to Chris a bunch online.
Nice, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, Brian Andrews, talked to him a whole bunch. Kyle Mills, I've talked to on the side. I've reached out and talked a little bit with Mark Greaney. Also Don Bentley, Chris Haughty, and like all those guys. Nice. I'll try and reach out and just, after I read a book and just be like, that was awesome. Kudos to you. I know I'm 6 books behind where you're at now, but this was awesome. And so like that's, that, and they're all responsive, which is fantastic. So, like you were saying with the community, it's not just the readers who are all engaging and going back and forth and having great conversation, but the writers get involved, and the writers are super supportive of everyone else in the genre. And that's really encouraging as someone who's trying to break in, or someone who's just a fan. Because at the end of the day, I want to be with them on the shelf, but I'm also a huge fan.
Yeah, that's exactly why we have you here today, because Gray Man just came out. We just released a couple pods breaking down the movie, breaking down the first book in the series. And one of the things, both me and Mike, right, you haven't had a chance to read the next book, have you, Mike?
I have not. That's why we need Jared today.
Yeah, that's why the whole, I guess, what jump-started this conversation is we had some questions coming out of the movie, and we thought that who would be better than a super fan to answer our questions and, maybe help some of our listeners as well who either have just listened to the movie or watched the movie or just read the first book. So I guess first question, what did you think of the movie? Let's just kick it off there.
I really enjoyed the movie. I think going into it, I understood, and I know Mark talked about it on numerous occasions, that they pulled different characters and different themes from numerous books and then just added in some characters as well. So there's a uniqueness to the movie as opposed to just what's in the book.
Right.
So there's a difference. You're never going to get the same story when you change mediums like that. You just can't. I think if you're going to do it just like the book, you're going to have to do kind of what Jack Carr did with Terminal List and get a series.
Exactly.
He's got 9 or 10 hours to work with. Yep. The Russo brothers tried to tell it in 2 hours. So there's inherently going to be a lot of difference in the material that's presented. That said, I thought it was incredibly enjoyable. I loved it. I knew it was going to be different. I didn't care. I just wanted to see, was the spirit the same?
Yep.
Is the when I watch Ryan Gosling, do I envision the Gray Man that I read in the book? That same style, the same attitude that he projects, the same way he approaches any situation. And yeah, I did. I've been a fan of Ryan Gosling since he was in Remember the Titans.
Right.
Early days.
I won't go see him in Ken and Barbie unless my wife makes me. But I thought he was fantastic in this movie, and the way that he reacted to the scenes where he gets his butt kicked left and right, and all he does is grunt and then gets up and fights again. That's what happens in the book.
That's the totally Court. That is Court, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was on brand. I loved that acting. When he gets shot and then snarky remark followed by effortlessly killing 5 people. Okay, no big deal. That's Court. That is the character that Mark created, and that was nice to see on screen. Chris Evans, as good as he is as Captain America, fabulous as a bad guy.
Oh yeah, he's a really good bad guy. He played Lloyd,
cocky bad guy.
He was the best part of the movie. I thought that Lloyd was amazing and captured the essence of the character from the book.
Absolutely, yeah. Just the smart ass ruthlessness that he has, and the way that Chris is able to deliver that character is just, makes the movie. It really brings you in as a viewer, and makes you feel for that character. Whether it draws an emotion, no matter whether it's liking him. If you hate him, great. If you like him, okay, fine. You might have to evaluate your own life choices if you like a character like that.
Who likes Lloyd?
Yeah, but if you do, sure, go ahead. You probably rooted for the bad guys in Game of Thrones. Fine, but it all comes back to if they're able to get an emotion out of the viewer, make them feel something. That's what you want. When you're reading it, you want to like the character or hate the character and be wishing that something good or bad is going to happen to them. And I think the movie did that well in terms of who they cast for certain roles.
And it's crazy because one of the major changes from the first book is that Lloyd is really just a lawyer. He has no field experience, no action scenes. He's pulling the strings, from an office. He's a paper pusher.
He's a CIA dropout, essentially. Right?
And he's a dropout of the CIA. you forget that entirely and you don't care and you're not distracted by that change of character because the casting and acting is so much fun. And Chris Evans is nailing, like you said, the spirit, the essence of who that character was and how they were written, even if they're totally a different skill set and a different job. It didn't even matter that they made such a major change to Lloyd's character because it was still Lloyd.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it gave a great adversary to Court in a telling a similar story to what's in the Gray Man in the book, but in a different way.
Sure.
Yeah, I like the change of making him, instead of being an incompetent, like I said, a CIA dropout, making him someone who got kicked out of the CIA, or his methods are, too harsh for the CIA. It kind of reminds me of, just thinking of other novels like Louis Gould, right? Like, sort of this very comparable to a Mitrap, but someone who has no hesitation of blowing up someone's pregnant wife. Exactly. You get that a better antithesis than in the book, where he's more of like a pathetic guy, and will sort of do anything to show his bravado. But yeah, like you guys said, it definitely captures the essence. So I do have a question. So I've sort of ebbed and flowed with this movie, and I've ebbed and flowed with my analysis of this movie. Like we talked about it right after I saw it in the movie theaters. And then we talked about it with some friends who do a movie review podcast. And in order to prepare for that, I rewatched it on Netflix. So I wanted to ask you first, how did you watch it? And second, I want to know your opinion on like the Netflix of it all. Do you think that hurt it? Do you think that helped it? Because I feel like when I rewatched it, I watched it on my phone. I watched it in bits and pieces, and it almost did it a disservice. Whereas when I was in the movie theater and I was strapped into my seat, and it was booming because the sound is so loud in it, and I couldn't look at my phone for 2 straight hours. I just had to watch the movie. I loved it. And then, but I don't know, maybe it's just everything that you watch sort of bit piecemeal. It just ends up, you ruin it. I ruined it myself.
You turned it into a mini series for yourself there.
Yeah, that didn't need to be.
I watched it on Netflix. It wasn't playing in theaters, I don't think, near me. Otherwise, I would have gone to see it in the theater. But yeah, watched it on Netflix and loved it. And like you said, the sound is great. Visually incredible. I don't know if they just did a lot of drone.
A lot of drone
work with flying around the scenes.
The city scene.
The city scenes. Oh, it was beautifully done. So kudos to them for that. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really good on Netflix. I would have liked it to have been in more theaters, but at this point I think there are going to be a lot more shows, a lot more things going on to streaming only, whether it's right. Netflix buying the rights or Hulu or Amazon, like with Jack Carr and his series, it's only on Amazon Prime. So I think that's going to be how a lot of things are, as with certain markets getting just big movies and how the movie theater future happens. But with streaming and how it's blown up the way it has, and then becoming more than just, we're going to take old movies and show them, but now they're doing all this original content, which is great because it gives a chance for these characters like a Court Gentry to be able to be shown in a different medium and bring people into the genre. Because there are people who will watch that and just go, oh, I want to see an action movie. Then you find out it's based on a novel.
Right.
And then you're going to read the book.
Right. That happened with The Terminalist. So many people are talking about that show, posting about it. And one of the first comments that comes up is, have you read the book? And they're like, oh, no, I'll have to pick it up. And there's no way you pick up the first Jack Carr book without picking up the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. So it's bringing people to the genre. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that first Terminalist, I'm a sucker for debut books, for like first novels in a series, like Transfer of Power, my favorite Mitch Rapp book.
Oh, amazing.
Just is. And then it's, and Gray Man, loved it. I've enjoyed all of the sequels, but the first one, I don't know what it is about a first book in a series. Just, if you knock that out of the park, you can do really, really great work throughout. But to me, it's like the debut is just there's something special about that.
I think you find that these series that end up going on 5 to what both Brad and Vince and / Kyle are at 21. The reason that they're there is because they did knock that first one out the park, and they were given a second shot to write. They got a 2-book, 3-book deal in the future. To me, what's interesting, and we've covered this before, me and you, Mike, is the second book. That is always, it's an interesting thing to see, because we see second books are the more hit or miss kind, and
They're
then
tough.
Typically the third book, if the series is going to continue on, the third book has to be either just as good or just below the first book. I guess just coming back to the Netflix one more time, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, this would have been the blockbuster movie of like a blockbuster movie of the summer. Obviously you had the blockbuster movie was Maverick, but like this would have been their some big debut. But one thing I think that the streaming actually adds is I found out that they've already greenlit the sequel, and they've already greenlit a spin-off show, and they haven't said what the spin-off show is going to be. So I don't know if you guys want to speculate what you think it could be. Is it going to be following some other Sierra person? Is it going to be following the little girl?
Could it be Danush? I love the Indian assassin, and
yes,
I think he has more of a story to play with the way that arc wrapped up. And I know a lot of Indian fans, there's a huge base. They wanted more of him because he's apparently a real big actor over there. I think he and Ana de Armas' character, you really have to use them more because they were gold.
I think both of those actors did tremendous jobs. I mean, Ana de Armas, her character is made up. That's brand new for the movie.
Mm.
She's not in the books anywhere.
And you don't even see her in the future. Okay.
No, not that I recall. I mean, basically in the book, Gentry works alone. And so how his relationship to the CIA in The Gray Man is different in the movie than it is in the book. And so that's important. I don't want to ruin the book for people if they haven't, but just where their relationships are different. Characters have different. Fitzroy is different in the books and in the movie.
I actually want to dig into that. I'm kind of curious. I don't know, Chris, how do you feel? Do we have to give a spoiler warning if people are going to read Beyond, On Target, and the second, third, fourth plus books?
Yeah, I guess we're 20, 25 minutes in. Let's try not to do like any sort of major
huge spoilers,
like spoiler plots, like the final culmination. But just like
Sure.
because there's like I want to dig into the one CIA lady. What was her name?
Suzanne Brewer. I'm real curious.
Brewer.
I feel like she has a place in the Gray Man's future and possibly past. And Denny Carmichael, do these characters... So, yeah, in like generalities, how the CIA was portrayed in the movie, does any of that come up in later books? Because it has nothing to do with book number 1.
Yes. Brewer does make an appearance in later novels and has a decent-sized role in the later novels. Carmichael as well. As they move through the first, I'm on Gunmetal Gray now. I just finished that, so I'm up to Agent in Place. So those characters do make appearances later and do become important to the story, and their relationships to Gentry are important with how certain plot lines play out over the next couple of books. And I think that even with the difference in delivery and how the movie set things up in terms of Court's relationship to those characters, I still think that they have a ton of... I don't think they ruined source material that they can't pull from to make more of the movies like we were talking about with the, with the sequel that they've already greenlit, which that's awesome because there's so much material. And there's so many themes that they can take, and even though they've changed things, they can still use those ideas for the next movie, and then moving on even more of a series if they're able to do more.
If they can put out 1 to 2 of these movies a year, I'm game.
And that's good to hear because a lot of comments in the Mark Rainey fans Facebook group. A lot of people, and the only negative things I've seen have come from book readers, the hardcore book readers, because they're saying they closed a lot of doors. They shut down a lot of things that you would do in the future. And again, maybe speaking in generalities, was it Fitzroy dying at the end on the roof of that castle? Like, I assume I want more of him. I assume there would be more of him. But then again, there's also an opportunity to go back in time. Do any of the books go back and flesh out Sierra Six's recruiting and the Sierra program, or are they all forward from here?
I believe that Sierra Six, the latest Mark Greaney book that has come out, that's the one that goes a lot into the past and a current storyline where they're both happening at the same time. I have it on my
like
shelf.
Prequel. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that delves into that, and that's what I hope the spinoff is. I hope the spinoff is from when he was taken out of prison.
Mm.
Yeah, because then it flashes, what, 13 years? Like, I want to know what happened in that 13 years.
It was 18 years later, wasn't it? Whatever
it was. A lot. It was a lot.
That time jump is I would love to see that. There are characters that I would really like to see them bring in. The Zach Hightower character.
Okay, who's that?
He's big in the book.
Okay.
He in the book he's Sierra One.
Oh, yes. Okay.
In the book he's Sierra One, and so they haven't introduced him, which is okay. Because, again, it leaves opportunity. Yes, the Fitzroy character was changed for the movie. Did he live longer than the first book? Yes, he did. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that I can see where people would say that doors were closed. But, again, going back to what we said at the beginning, which is it's a different medium. You can change people's how they changed relationships already. You can easily work in. There's talented writers that are working on this movie. They're not scrubs by any means. They're going to take the source material and they're going to meld it to tell a good story in a different way, staying true to the gray man ethos, but in a different manner.
Yeah, and I think if you write you write something that you're planning on a sequel, that's where people get. And you see these big IP machines get into trouble. Like, just like look at DC, where like they'll set up these movies that are you don't get all the payoffs in them, and you're left. You put a stinger, and then the movie bombs, and it's never going to get greenlit again. And then all you do is end up pissing the fans who like it. So here, I felt like they did a good enough job. Obviously leaving some story on the bone, like Sierra's alive at the end, and he escapes from the CIA, but you were able to tell this emotional story with Fitzroy, and like obviously they were able to get Billy Bob Thornton to play the character. Do you really think he was going to be able to stay on? I mean, he's getting a lot of money, but he probably agreed to this because it's like, all right, I die at the end, I get to hold a freaking grenade and kill people. Like that's something cool that you can sell to these bigger actors. Just think about who they got in this movie. I didn't even realize it when I was thinking about it. But I then listened to this other movie podcast, The Big Picture, and they were just rattling off all the people. I didn't realize that the guy who dies with the with the trap door, that's Pablo Escobar from Narcos.
Oh.
The actor who played him, he has lost a lot of weight from that since that role. The African American lady who's in charge of the CIA, she's very famous.
She was fantastic too. Margaret Cahill, I think I don't know the actress's name, but underappreciated. And that was another good change from the book, because in the book it was that old man Maurice that I didn't really like, who was Six's trainer. I don't know if Maurice comes back at all, but I thought that woman being his original handler, and he had a very fond, sage, like she was like a sage to him. I thought that was really well played.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, the hardcore, what you were saying with the hardcore book lovers being like, they're going to be the ones who are the most critical of it, because you want to see what you read. You envision that as you're reading it. You want to see that on screen. And when they change that, everyone gets all riled up. Same thing with American Assassin when that came out. They didn't like the story. They didn't like the casting. They didn't like. I had more. I thought the casting was fine. The story,
I was fine with the casting. The story was just absolute complete shit.
That's a book you needed to keep. You needed to keep Vince's story as close as you can. You
Yeah.
can't mess
And
with Vince.
yeah, and I don't know why they did it, but they did it. But like I thought what's his Dylan
Dylan O'Brien.
O'Brien, yeah, did it.
Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton.
Oh, Michael Keaton was a
He
great
was
Sam Hurley.
awesome.
Keaton was good. I think everyone wanted Bruce Willis. I know that like there was everyone's like, oh, I want Bruce Willis. I want Chris Hemsworth to play, Mitch Rapp, which yeah, he could. But just because we want an actor to play a character, you know what? That doesn't always work.
But see, the one thing we're going off tangent here, but the one thing reason I liked the actor they got is because Mitch is a lacrosse star. He's not a rugby star like Hemsworth. He's a skinny dude who then obviously bulks up later on, but he's never described as like this beefy dude. He runs triathlons. He's super athletic.
Yeah.
So I believed that character way more than. The problem I have is with introducing the what's up with the one guy always playing a bad guy. He was a
Taylor
bad guy in the
Kitsch.
Terminal List.
Taylor
Kitsch.
Kitsch, yeah.
Taylor Kitsch's character.
Yeah.
He was a completely new thing, but that's a whole nother pod. But yeah, no, like they got Chris Evans, Renee Jean Page from Bridgerton. Jessica Henwick. She was in the new Matrix movie as the new main character.
Yeah.
Bugsy or whatever her name was. And she's been in a lot of different things. It's just amazing, like the amount of people that they got to be in this movie. I mean, I guess that's what $200 million get you, right?
And they all had time to shine, which is, I think, an important thing because you want to give the audience, obviously, a lot of Court, a lot of Lloyd, because that's the main conflict. But you give Billy Bob Thornton time to shine as Fitzroy. You give Regé-Jean Page time to shine as Carmichael, and the importance that he is to the future of to his role in the future stories. Like Jessica, who played Suzanne Brewer, her character, that character and what it means moving forward. All these people, you get the viewer to care about them. And you draw out an emotion so that you want more of that person, so that when they do that sequel and that person's in it, you're not going to be like, oh, that person's back. Yeah, you want to see what that person's going to do. You want to. One of my favorite scenes in The Gray Man, right at the beginning, when they Carmichael throws the cup of coffee,
the glass, yeah,
and you don't hear it because it's shown from the outside of the control room, and all of a sudden you start to see his hand move, and then all of a sudden it pulls back, and you just see the cup explode against the glass wall.
That was a good shot.
That was good.
Yeah,
loved it. And so, I mean, I think he's a little bit younger of a Carmichael than is in the book. Okay. But again, I'm okay with it. It's well acted, and as long as the spirit of the character is the same, that's what I look for in the adaptations from book to movie. Is this, what's the spirit like? And I think they nailed it pretty well.
Yeah. Let me ask you about that, because our friends we had on to review the movie with us, or I'll say gently, we're not as high on the movie as I was. And a main critique was this jumbled set of themes and different tones, and how tonally they felt the movie didn't know what it wanted to be. Yet for me, I think that was how this movie set itself apart from a Jason Bourne, which is really dead serious. Like Pam Landy running, Bourne and this team is like, the stakes are so high.
That sounds very serious. Yeah.
The stakes are high. It's very serious. I didn't want this to be just a super serious, like spy movie. I didn't want it to be a Bond either, or a Mission Impossible. The action's just so over the top, and Tom Cruise is going to do these ridiculous things. It had bits and pieces of all of these. And then you add the humor that Chris Evans brought and Ryan Gosling brought. So I'm almost happy it was a mashup of all these different tones and themes that worked for me. And that's what defines, for me, The Gray Man moving forward. I expect the next one to do the same thing. Have the over-the-top, jumping out of airplanes type of stuff, while you also have some pretty cool CIA spy espionage stuff. And at the same time, you have a lot of lighthearted humor, the slapstick like the Avengers. Are you okay with it jumbling all those together?
Yes, and I think what you just said is where I think is the sweet spot. It, like you said, the Avengers. If you look at that, it's action. There are serious tones. And then there's that funny comment that just comes out of nowhere that lightens it a little bit, but doesn't take away from the overall seriousness. Ryan Gosling, when he's like, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "My ego's kind of bruised. You know, I'd like to save you once. Not that I want you to be in mortal danger so that I can save you, but it'd be nice to like." Little comments like that in the heat of the moment, to me, bring another layer. And this is also, that's all subjective. You can hate that there's a balance of seriousness and then someone making a wisecrack in the middle of it. You can hate that. There are a lot of people that love it. And being that the Russos did Winter Soldier and Infinity War and Endgame, did they not? They did all of those.
Right. They're from Community originally, so.
Yeah, and that's their wheelhouse, is doing this great, beautiful action movie with some humor thrown in. Because to a degree that happens in the book. There are comments that are made that are just funny. And then
Court is more humor than most of the characters we live with.
Less than Scott Harvath, but more than Mitch Rapp for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who throws a loaded gun?
Yeah, I don't think you can have Mitch Rapp making one-liners like Gosling pulled off. That's not that style.
No.
But for this, it works.
When they stop and do the whole who throws a loaded gun, and I'm literally like,
that
guy is getting away. Go after him. He has the flash drive. But they deliberately choose for 10 to 15 seconds to drop everything to show you that Ana de Armas is pissed off about not having, slugs in the gun. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, her character and her and Ryan played off really, really well. And that I can see where the book people are like, oh, that's not true. Court's a loner, and blah blah blah. He's just by himself, and it's like, yeah, to a degree, yes, but again, different medium. Spirit of his character still the same.
Yeah,
and who knows what happens with them going forward? Is she on Court's side still, or is she on the CIA side? So, is that a spoiler? Did I just
No.
Okay, but it's just where does her character fit in the next one? Is she with Brewer and Carmichael? Is she with Gentry? Where does she fit in? And where does Gentry fit in? Because he just stole the little girl out from under them. So, there's so many paths that they can take. That I'm really excited to see what the writers do for the next one.
Can you do us a favor for just me and Mike? Can you just set up what the beginning of what On Target begins with? Like where do we next, pick up with Gentry?
We get a hint at the end of the first book. I don't know if this is true, but the end of the first book, the Laurent group, Mark Laurent, who set up the whole hit on him in book 1, his company, ends up hiring Court. Is that going to be something that plays out for a while? He's going to work for this kind of mercenary group?
He works for who's going to pay him and depending on the target.
Okay.
Because, again, his relationship to the CIA in the books is very different than the movie.
Right.
And in the books, he is a pariah. He is living abroad because he's being hunted by damn near everybody. Wants to get the Gray Man. And so he is the mythical assassin that works with Fitzroy and takes on, but he still has that moral base. That always, I do what I do, but I'm still going to do it for the right reasons. I'm not just going to kill indiscriminately. He's not a Lloyd. He has a conscience. He's willing to stick his neck out to do things that sometimes are against the mission, but because it's the right thing to do. And so there are times where it puts him at odds with what he needs to do with what he feels he has to do. And those kind of themes come to play in later books as well. And that pisses off the people that he's working for, because they want him to go from A to C. And he might have to jump from, A to D back to C, but he always has a plan. And he always follows what he believes is what his moral center for getting the job done the right way.
I like that because a lot of these characters and these heroes of thrillers, you'll have the same tension. They're working for an intelligence agency, and the main tension is, do their superiors want them to do the dirty work for themselves, or is this really the right thing for the country or the greater good? And so there's always that tension. But then on the other side, the private for hire assassins are always the ones without the moral compass. The villains who work for somebody like a Laurent or whoever's paying the highest, they're usually the slummy ones, the trashy ones. So it's real interesting to hear that Court is kind of living on the edge, taking jobs. But while he's taking those jobs, he realizes what his employer wants and is paying him for. If it's not the right thing, he won't end up doing it. So it's kind of the reverse of what I would say the trope is, which is usually the for hire guys are the ones that are just sleazeballs, and the guys who work for the intelligence agencies are torn about doing the right thing or not.
Yeah, it's a nice play on a nice little flip of the script to be that character. And, obviously throughout, and I'm not going to spoil things for later books, but his relationship to characters early on in the books obviously grows and changes as the series progresses. And I'm sure they'll do that with the movie as well. So it's very interesting how it all plays out in that, you have people like, sorry, man, got to do this. And he's like, well, do what you have to do, but so am I. Right. And he always, he has that moral center that he always goes back to for how he's going to attack a certain problem.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's what I like about, that what Greeny has done with this character to make him new, make him fresh, make him stand out as opposed to, some of the other characters that we get. Because you could just easily fall into the trope of being a Jason Bourne, Mitch Rapp, Scott Harbath. And we like to read different things. And I think like when I started reading the book, I went into it thinking it was going to be like that. And then I had to get over the fact that, all right, this book is just outlandish in terms of it wants to be like what Mike said, like what I feel like they captured with the movie. I'm going to pick and choose from Jason Bourne. I'm going to pick and choose from all the other thriller authors that I like. Throw in some Mission Impossible crazy ass action. And let's just go along for the ride with Court and this guy who has, like you said, this moral compass. And I think the book definitely gets that across. And I think the movie does as well in terms of, that's the whole reason why he goes after the girl, right? Or, has to get the girl.
And Fitzroy, he feels like there's that connection there that humanizes the character. And I think they did a nice job of that. It's not, I'm just this superhero, superhuman guy who can take an absolute beating and then still walk away like it's nothing. But there's that connection there that softens them just enough that draws in readers and adds another layer to that character. That I agree with you, that makes it real. It makes it very engaging to watch.
Speaking of being engaging to watch, this is a good time to give an update on a segment I like to call The Critics Can Go Scratch. Oh boy. So I find it engaging to watch. You find it engaging to watch. But unfortunately, only 45% of critics, according to the tomato meter, find this engaging to watch. And in fact, one says, quote, "It's filled in with lukewarm leftovers from far better films." What say you to that? Except the audience score is still an impressive 91%. What do you think about the discrepancy there?
I think critics are paid to write an opinion, and it depends what that person is. That person a thriller genre fan? Do they rip? Are they the artsy person who loves the what's going to win best movie of the year? Which that's not what this is. This is a straight action thriller. Just like people don't like all the comic book movies because they're too popcorn or whatever. Like, the way I look at it, can you entertain me for a couple of hours to where I'm not thinking about my daily life? That's
100%.
it. If you can do
Right.
that, if you can entertain me and make me think and make me want to talk about it with someone who else who has seen it, and we'll get in a debate and we'll discuss it like we are doing right here. If you have that, great. That's all I need. I
Yes.
don't get caught up in critics and what they, whatever. Like you said, they can go scratch. If you don't like the movie, okay, don't like the movie. I don't give a damn. If I think a movie looks entertaining, I'm gonna watch it. That's all.
I'm almost glad this movie was not more realistic, because if it attempted to be more realistic, if I had felt that they were trying to do that, I would have sat there and I would have thought about that the whole time. Well, that couldn't happen. Oh, all these cops, and he's he's handcuffed to a bench in the middle of the town square and nobody can get him. And Ana de Armas with one RPG is basically blowing up a castle of 100 plus shooters. Like, if I sat there and tried to give it an ounce of, is this realistic? It would have ruined my movie going experience. So I'm
It would
glad
ruin
this movie
every movie
doubled
you've
down.
ever seen.
Right.
It knew what it wanted to be, and I'm glad it stuck to it.
If we're gonna sit there and analyze and nitpick every movie, you know what? Like, we'll destroy anything.
Yeah, there'd be like 5 good movies. That's all.
Right.
You'd have like Shawshank Redemption and The Godfather Part 1 and and 2. There you go. That's it.
I mean, yeah, it's like, I mean, come on, just entertain me. That's what movies are, entertainment.
And
It's not a serious movie that we're going for. It's not like they took Gettysburg and like started like injecting humor into it, like where they're cracking jokes at night after 20,000 people just, got, massacred or whatever. That's not what this is. It's an entertaining movie. Know what the movie is aiming for, and that's what I believe that you would write a review on. That's not how everyone views it. Okay, fine. But like, I've never paid attention to critics, and what if it's something that I think is going to be entertaining and I will like, I'll watch it.
There we go.
Yeah, I tend to focus more on the audience score
Mhm.
because, especially with something like this where massive amount of people are going to see it on Netflix, or like with the MCU films, I'll see every MCU film no matter what, but like, I don't really care. Like, people hated the new, most of the MCU films that have come out since Endgame, and I'm like, what do you hate about it? It entertained me for 2 hours. It was better than, I don't know, watching paint dry. Like, like, not that that's a standard, but like, I don't know. But the problem is that I've seen bad action movies, and this was not it. That's
Agreed.
the thing. I don't know. I don't know why they get their panties in a bunch. It's really frustrating. And like, I watched Ambulance. Have you guys seen Ambulance?
No.
I did not see it
Like,
yet.
another outlandish, crazy, a lot of drone shots. The plot makes absolutely no sense, but they gave Michael Bay his bag, and he didn't disappoint. Explosions out the wazoo. It entertained me that movie was long. It was almost like 3 hours. That I started to have a problem with, but like, it was fun. It was engaging. Like, I don't know. The critics, like you said, can go scratch.
But also, to your example, like you said, the action was so crazy, it's Michael Bay, so it's going to be awesome. And it didn't matter if the plot was bad. But the plot isn't even all that bad here. Like, it's not great.
No, it's not.
It's not
Yeah.
perfect, but it's not all that bad where you need the whiz bang. You need the $200 million in casting famous actors, or the CGI to be crazy. Like, it wasn't a Band-Aid trying to cover up a bad story or bad dialogue. I would say not the best or not great story or dialogue, but it wasn't like it was just trying to cover it up with action.
Do you guys think this would have been better as a 10-part Netflix series as opposed to the movie?
I have a feeling on that, and I'm going to say no. Part of the reason is it works so well for The Terminalist, because The Terminalist is a meaty, deadly serious, really dark story, and to pack that much emotional punch into 2 hours wouldn't have worked. It doesn't have that lightheartedness. So let's reverse that. The Gray Man, I think, doesn't have as a book or a story all that much meat. It's much more fluffy. It's not a tight, emotional, gripping thing or a psychological drama that you need to unpack over a longer period of time. So no, I think it worked here making it a movie, keeping it to around 2 hours. And also the fact you could see that it didn't have that meat and that substance. Like Jared was telling us, they needed to bring in the CIA storyline and characters from future books. So they actually needed to pack it even more to get to 2 hours. So for that reason, I don't think it would have worked as a longer drawn out TV show. I do like the long format, Reacher and Terminalist and Jack Ryan, but I don't think the Gray Man necessitated it. I think a series of action movies is what it needs.
I can go either way.
Okay.
I agree with you in that I think that there is a heaviness to the Terminalist that is a lot more to unpack than the Gray Man. But I think it depended on how the writers wanted to go. I would not have been opposed to a series with this, because then I think you can stay truer to the source material if that's the way you want to go, and you can do a series that way because you're able to delve a little bit more into the backstory, into the relationships more. You can add that meat back as opposed to maybe covering it superficially over 2 hours, and then you continue to delve into it. You leave that you give them that taste, and then you come back in the sequel and you build. Right. So if layer 1 is Gray Man, and then layer 2 is the sequel movie, in a series, you're that's all interchanging together, and you can do that. I would love to see all these a lot of these as series, because then you can play a lot more with what's there in the books, as opposed to feeling like you have to change it a lot. I don't have a problem with what they did. As I said, I loved it. I thought it was enjoyable. They could have done. You can always do more with 10 hours than you can with 2. Let's just say that. You can always do more. But again, it comes back to the contracts. It comes back to timing. There's a lot more, Pratt had to go between this and doing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But how does it turn, if Gosling is your actor and Evans is your actor, where does this fit into their schedule?
Yeah, you probably don't get all of these big name actors in a series. You might get Gosling and Evans, or just one, just one of the two. Yeah, you're right.
Do the actors have 2 months, or do they have 6 months?
Right.
So that's got to play in. That's a lot of back stuff. Like, I've done some background acting, and so it's like you see how much goes into 5 minutes of shooting. It's incredible. I was on set once for 6 hours for a 5-minute TV scene.
Oh, wow. Gee. What show was this?
It was Mr. Mercedes. It was Brendan Gleeson. It was on the Audience channel, which was like an AT&T channel. I think it's all on Hulu now.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It's based off a Stephen King novel. Real messed up book. Really messed up. But I was in the season 2 finale to play a videographer. I actually got some FaceTime, which was sweet.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. But for the first day I was there, I was on set for like 14 hours, I think it was. And 6 hours was literally just on the opening statements of the court case in the finale episode, because they have to shoot it from far away, then shoot it closer,
close. Yeah.
Every angle, and the actors have to repeat the lines over and over and over again and nail it. And it is painstaking, long days. And they do tremendous work. It's amazing to watch them. The amount of work and the crew so as I'm watching movies now and watching shows, I'm like, oh my God, how many
about that stuff?
Like, they better nail this in one shot, especially with like those action scenes. It's like, you've got to nail them, because I don't know how much Gosling's stunt double can take jumping through how many plexiglass windows that they have.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
maybe you enjoy being thrown through a window and falling, 30 feet onto a pad. Maybe you do. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. I actually think it would be fun. But, it's a lot of work. So I think the timing of what you can do with the actors that you're working with also plays into whether you can go series or whether you can go movie. And then I think the writers go from there.
I'm wondering if that is all precisely why we haven't heard about season 2 of The Terminalist, if it's the logistics piece. So I'm hoping it happens soon, but a
I
little
hope so.
surprised we
I
haven't
really
gotten it
hope
yet.
so, because I think that Jack has told an amazing story with incredible depth, and that he's built up. And so I think I would love to see it. And just like I'm really excited to see future movies. I know that they talked about with the Russo brothers have said they wanted to make this like almost like a Bourne series for the Gray Man with multiple movies. I think that they would like to put, maybe 3 to 5 pictures together using 11 books now that he has of material. That's enough material.
Yeah.
That even if you take stuff from two books per movie, you can still do a lot.
It would have been cool if this movie ended with a title screen of "The Gray Man Will Be Back." That would have been baller.
We'll return. Yeah.
Will return. I think just having him walk out kind of the way he did,
It was good. Yeah, it was.
It was good. Like it was a lot of fun to watch. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, all right, this was different. This was different. But again, I still like the end product. I think what they did at the end, they kept the spirit of it alive. And maybe now that how he walks out or how this first movie ends, maybe that then brings in his relationship with the CIA that you have in the first book.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Does he go from asset to liability? So there's a lot of tones that they can play with. Like I said, with Ana de Armas's character, where does she fall?
Yep.
Right. Right.
I'm glad
where
they left it up.
Brewer and Carmichael go? How does that all play off? And then there's so many other characters that they can bring in. So it's very exciting to see, and I'm sure Mark is excited and happy to see that there's a lot that they can do moving forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. We're here for it, and can't wait to see it.
Yeah, this was fantastic. I am more excited now to continue reading the series because I wasn't sure if it was a series I would continue and get to the end of. But you've definitely convinced me, and it's glad to hear a positive, fresh take on the film and on all these books. And before we let you go, though, I do have to ask you something because the listeners should know it is thanks to Jared that we have been giving gold, silver, and bronze awards to our covers in the Judge a Cover by the Book segment on the podcast.
I didn't know it was you, Jared. No, thank you.
That was all Jared's idea.
There are a few things that I advocate for on social media, but when you started doing the cover stuff, when those posts came out, I was like, this is just fun. I'm jumping on this, and I'll speak about it in an authoritative way until someone is like, you're an idiot. And no one said that yet, so I'm just going to take that, and I'll go with it.
Yeah, because Chris, in the early days, we only gave our favorite cover. And, ever since Jared brought it up, we've been giving our first, second, third takes. So I got to ask you then, if we're looking at all the Mark Rainey books, and if you go to his website, markraineybooks.com, you can click on the books page and see them all. It even shows his standalone books, the 2 of them, Red Metal and the newly released Armored, and his, 7 or 8 Tom Clancy books. Give us your gold, silver, and bronze best Mark Rainey covers.
Yeah, let's just first off say that Rainey has had one hell of a writing career.
Right.
Yes.
I'm gonna immediately. I like the Clancy novels, but all of them are basically the same. So I'm gonna put them all behind Armored and Red Metal. I like, but if we're gonna go gold, gold, silver, bronze here, I'm going gold, Gray Man. Again, I am a sucker for the debut. You look at that novel with the black with the black on the outside, that kind of, with the blue and the white and the guy running That's just perfect. It sets up exactly who the character is and sets up the book really well. And it just draws your eye in. I'm also going to go with number 2. Let's see, bronze. Or no, I'm sorry, silver. Silver, I'm going to go Backblast. One of my favorite books probably my second favorite book off of after Gray Man. It's number 5 in the series.
Okay.
And it kind of brings part of his story full circle. Again, I'm not going to ruin it for people who haven't read it. But things that happen in the first couple of books, they come to a head in Backblast. Something to look forward to. One Mr. Carmichael plays a very large role in this book. And his story and his relationship to Cortland Gentry. So that one, and him walking with the Capitol behind it.
That's pretty colors. Cool. I like the traffic, like I'm a sucker for that too.
On the side. Yeah, it just pops. And then let's see. I don't know what it is about it, but Sierra 6 just is enjoyable to look at.
It's pretty good. Yeah, that one's pretty good.
That is a good cover.
It is just, I like how it goes up into his name. You know what I mean? Which is
the silhouette.
Which is a different style than they've done for any of his other books, looking at it. So I don't know what it is, but it's just the colors that are there that really just stand out to me. So whoever does those covers, shout out to you guys, because, it's awesome, and it's a lot of work, I'm sure. But that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with Gray Man, gold. What did I say? Backblast is the silver.
Backblast.
And then Sierra 6 will take home the bronze.
Jared has spoken.
All right.
There it is.
The guru has spoken.
The self-appointed guru.
I got to add that to my Twitter profile.
There you go.
Oh, that's good. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Love chatting Gray Man. Every time we get to talk to other fans about these books, it is just a delight. Best part of doing this podcast. So thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. Come back anytime.
Fantastic.
Yes.
We'll have you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yes. Thanks, guys.
All right. We have to thank our patrons, especially our special operator, Sherry F., along with our special agents, Daryl, Kevin, George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. You can find us at thrillerpod.com or on Twitter and Instagram at thrillerpodcast. And as always, Jimmy Boy is on his way.